What's going on, everybody? It's that time of the night where I get to hang out with all my friends and talk about some cool and weird and interesting things. I hope everybody has had a great day. I know it's been sweltering hot here in Alabama. I'm sure it is in Mississippi too. But yeah, it's been real busy. Just got done eating some fried catfish with the boss man, Greg Ogles. Had a great time doing that. And other than that, that's really about my day. Just been busy running around and getting stuff because last night my little rescue dog decided to do a little interesting thing. You know, she ain't the brightest pup in the world, but she's real street smart and she loves to, I guess, be a survivalist, which makes sense since that's kind of how we found her, right? And her favorite thing to do is find a new little critter out there, catch it, and bring it in the house. And that makes my wife and daughter squeal very loudly when she does that. And it's hilarious most of the time. But last night, she found a new animal. I guess she didn't know. My other dog, she knew, and she still stayed away. But she decided that she was going to go after a skunk. So you can just safely assume that over here at the spam house, it's been interesting and stinky. So good times. But anyways, you know, enough of that. Let's get to the promotional stuff. You guys know what to do. Make sure that everybody here has hit the like button and do all the commenting in the live stream when the episode's done. Please leave me a comment because it helps me a lot in the algorithm and all that stuff, you know. And yeah, go check out all the links, you know, check out the merches and check out the cups. You know, we want to help do our part to help the victims of Hurricane Helene. So that's Mystic Mountain Creations, who donates parts of the proceeds to that. So make sure you guys go and check all that out. You don't have to buy my merch from them. They can make you whatever you want. So they're cool, and we love Jenny and Mike. But anyways, tonight we are going to talk about one of the more interesting subjects that I have always enjoyed consuming, and that's Dogman. And just generally speaking, from like what I see with YouTube, I feel like everybody likes the subject a lot too. So with that being said, I've got a really interesting person who is a member of the NADP that is fairly close to me, that I'd like to have you guys hear what he has to say. So with that being said, let's bring on Mr. Marcus Ellis. Marcus, what's up, buddy?
Man, it's your world and I'm just living in it.
Heck yeah. I'm glad somebody recognizes.
It might not be quite as stinky over here as it is at your house, but you know.
Lord. Brother, it's rough. It is rough. Ain't nothing like giving a dog a bath 5 times in a row at 1 o'clock in the morning. That makes for a great night.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I have an indoor house cat. He doesn't go outside, so I just have to deal with his messes here inside. So
that's a lot easier. Oh Lord, she killing me.
A lot easier, yes.
It's cute when she brings in like the baby rabbit, you know, and it's like over there squealing while it's hanging out of her mouth. That's fun. But the skunk, no, I ain't about that life.
No, not at all.
Well, awesome, man. Well, talk to us a little bit about you and who you are and what you do, brother.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Marcus Ellis. I live in the state of Mississippi. You know, it's always kind of weird when you go to talking about yourself. But ever since I was a kid, you know, growing up in the 70s and all, I've always had an interest in, you know, all things paranormal. I was a young pup back when the Patterson-Gimlin film started making the rounds, and you know, it really started getting shown out and about in the early and mid 70s. The same time period, you have what I always refer to as this big paranormal boom that happened. And I'm talking about back then you had, of course, Bigfoot. You know, Bigfoot was making a lot of waves. You had the Bermuda Triangle that was in and on the news all the time. The Loch Ness Monster, haunted places, haunted houses. 1973, we had a huge UFO flap here in the southeast, and Mississippi was not excluded from that. We had wave upon wave of UFO sightings. The famous or infamous, however you want to look at it, the Hickson Parker Pascagoula alien abduction took place in this time frame. I even stumbled across during my research a possible Mothman sighting in this time period here in Mississippi. I wasn't able to really substantiate it, but there was a radio announcement at that time that came over one of the local radio stations that a Mothman type character had been seen here in Mississippi during this wave of stuff. So after that, I was hooked. For the next handful of years, I just devoured, I just devoured anything I could get my hands on. Whenever I would go to church, I was the weird young kid who was always kind of nudging the preacher or the pastor. Hey, tell me about this demon thing. You know, what's the deal about demons and all this kind of stuff? And they're like, sure, kid, if that's what you want to know, I'll tell you everything I can. So this just progressed on. And then, of course, we get off into the 80s. And the alien abduction thing really hit with Bud Hopkins, John Mack, and Whitley Strieber. His books, his first couple of books, Communion in particular, just really captured me, scared the crap out of me for one thing, because you could kind of feel what this man was going through. And of course, I mean, the fact that he was a awesome, successful writer didn't hurt nothing either. But
there is.
I really got off, into the UFO thing, which leads us into the early 2000s. I had an incident happen here on my home property that I had kind of eased back into Bigfoot, and my fresh research led me into making determinations about, well, maybe Bigfoot is not the nice, sweet, kind, gentle thing that was portrayed in Harry and the Hendersons. Maybe there's a dark side to this thing. I'm not saying every Bigfoot encounter is evil and malevolent. I'm not saying that, but I just began to see a side, as did other researchers, that maybe these things are like any other wild animal. They have the potential to be dangerous and harmful. But anyway, again, I had something happen on my property. So I reached out to some people. They in turn turned me on to, they're like, hey, you know this guy who lives in your hometown? And I'm like, what guy? And they said, well, MK Davis. Do you know MK Davis? And I'm like, MK Davis. And I'm like, wait a minute, do you mean this Davis? And they're like, yeah, I think we're talking about the same guy. And I'm like, well, heck yeah, I used to go to church with him. I mean, like, we're good friends. Well, maybe you need to call him. So I mean, MK only lives as the crow flies about 7 miles from my house. So he kind of walked me through what was going on here on my property. And I had been in a bunch of, successful secular and Christian rock bands, and that kind of petered out, unfortunately. And I had a lot of time on my hands. And I asked MK, I said, hey, do you mind maybe taking me under your wing and teaching me what you know? And he was like, heck yeah. So I started going on adventures with him, and he's teaching me all this stuff that I had never even remotely thought about. And right before, and I'm kind of skipping ahead here because I know we want to be brief on this, but skip a little bit ahead after a handful of years of being out with him, I joined MUFON. I became a certified MUFON field investigator, and I investigated UFO and UAP cases with them for, I think, about 4 years. And then I joined up with their alien abduction team, which was called, or is called, the ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team. And there we help people with alleged alien abduction. So I took a new job, and that kind of took it made it a near impossible case for me to continue on with MUFON. So I kind of stepped back from them. But at the same time, I realized, of course, I mean, COVID had a lot to do with it, but I realized I really missed the cryptid thing. I really missed getting out there, and doing, Bigfoot stuff. And of course, the Dogman thing was coming to the forefront as well. So I really got off into studying the Dogman phenomenon. And that kind of leads me to where I'm at now. I was blessed and fortunate enough to be asked by the North American Dogman Project guys to come on board and be the state representative for Mississippi. And it's funny how that timed out, because about November of last year, of course, this has only been within the last couple of months, but I had a dogman sighting of my own. And that really kind of, thank goodness it wasn't like a face-to-face, like unfortunately a lot of people go through. But I saw this thing, and like I say, I was totally immersed anyway. And I'm like, I got to get more out there for Dogman. So that kind of brings us up to speed on who I am and where I'm at, so to speak. Here we are.
Right, for sure. And now, if I'm not mistaken, before we pass it up, you have a YouTube channel as well, right? All right. What's the name of that?
I do. The YouTube channel, excuse me, sinuses here in Mississippi are kind of cutting up.
I feel you.
It's Unexplained Mississippi, and I've got a lot of episodes where I go out in the field. I'm boots on the ground, and there's nothing hokey about what I do. I don't have special effects and recreations. It's just me out there, a lot of times documenting and talking to the camera as it happens or just after it happens. So I just go out, and I have a handful of research areas that I go to, and usually to the better or the worse, something generally happens. But yeah, I mean, Unexplained Mississippi is my YouTube channel, and I know we're going to be talking about chupacabras, and I'll go ahead and put this blurb in for you. But I have an episode there called Killer Chupacabras in Mississippi, where I did a deep dive on part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. But my website is www.unexplainedmississippi.com. I think something that I'm really proud and tickled and happy to be on board with, of course, is the North American Dogman Project. That just when I got invited to do that with those guys, that just absolutely just tickled me to death and made me happier beyond words, because people here in Mississippi are experiencing and seeing these things. And it's just something that needs to be put out there. People need to know that there are people you can talk to in Mississippi about these things, whether it's Bigfoot or Dogman. But www.northamericandogmanproject.com is where you can find our website, of course. You can reach out to me there. You can reach out to other investigators through various states in the country, and we've got a lot of hot information up on the main page dealing with an amazing case that was brought to us from the land between the lakes. I mean, how can you talk about Dogman and not talk about the LBL? We were blessed to have a case come up where a group of people, I think they were making their way out of the LBL one night, and they wound up getting some thermal footage, and it shows a possible dog man or dog woman with a pup. And this is a case that Jody Cook and a lot of guys have studied and researched and looked into, and I think we're very, very comfortable and very secure with the footage and the people that you know that this involves. So I think that's just something that people, if you're into Dogman and you want to know more and see more, then North American Dogman Project.com is, we've got a lot of stuff up on the main page talking about that. Facebook, again, with me being the Mississippi representative, I have a North American Dogman Mississippi chapter Facebook group. It's open to the public. You're welcome to stop by. You're welcome to join. And, we talked about Unexplained Mississippi. I've got an Unexplained Mississippi Facebook page and a little group there. But here lately, it seems like I've as much time as I'm able, and sadly, when you have a day job, that kind of eats into things. But that seems to be where I try to, to hang my hat. But there's a lot of people who are members that, and a big thank you to those guys. They're throwing content up and sharing Dogman stories and Dogman stuff. So it helps me out a little bit. Well, not it actually helps me out a lot. So those are the places. And if you want to email me, my email address is unexplainedms@gmail.com. So lots of ways and lots of places you can find me.
Right. Awesome. Well, cool, man. I'm glad we got that out there, and hopefully we can get some traction or some more traction going your way, because, it's important, because like you said, these things happen, and, too often people are afraid to talk about it. And, I understand it a little bit, but to another extent, by, people going on record and talking about it, you'd be surprised by the amount of people that actually helps for the other people that have had these experiences, to feel like they're not alone, and that's super important. That's what, I strive to facilitate that. Sure.
I mean, me too. And, it was weird when I was interviewing witnesses for MUFON. I can't tell you if I had $1 bill for every time I talked to somebody and they said, "So I'm not crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not losing my mind." I'm like, no. If I had $1 bill for every time I heard that, I could take me, you, and your family out to a nice steak dinner and have bucks left over. Nice. People just want to know whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's Dogman, or a haunted property or something. And we talked about this off air. Sometimes they'll tell you their story, and you're thinking, okay, well, they'll be back in touch later on to tell me more, and you never hear from them. And I think it's not that they're being rude or anything like that. It's just a matter of, I got it off my chest. This guy listened to me. He didn't call me crazy. He didn't pick on me. He didn't, say I was nuts, or that, I need to have an exorcism or something like that. He listened, and I feel better. I'm done. I think that's a lot of people. And you're in Alabama and I'm here in Mississippi. As I always say, it's kind of a Southern thing. People are really hesitant to talk about UFOs. People are a lot more open, I have found, to, especially since things have kind of come out since 2017 with the DOD videos and stuff.
Right.
Bigfoot, they're a little bit more, willing to talk about that. But when the subject of Dogman and, sometimes when you start talking giants and Nephilim and things like that, it can get rough. It can turn into a rough conversation. And and a lot of times they feel like this is something demonic. And I can't talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. People will get on to me if I talk about it. I'm inviting bad stuff. And it's not to say that, that may or may not be true. Being a Christian myself, I understand that you can open up doors and open up things that bring about misfortune. But if you handle it properly, and there are ways to handle it properly, then you can get through it. So, but yeah, people get really nervous and don't want to talk about it here in the South. So that's why I'm with you, and I know that's why you do what you do. It's an effort just to let people know, hey, we're here, and we're willing to help if we can help. And God knows I'd give it my college best. I'd be happy to help anybody. So that's part of what we do.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, man. Because, like you said, people be like, "Oh, I'm not crazy." It's like, no, you're not. It happens all the time. What, you think the stories like that's in your Bible are just stories? Like, no. Nothing's changed. It still happens. Yeah. In fact, we are instructed as Christians to deal with it. So,
yes, we are.
That's just part of it.
And it's kind of ironic. There's what's the guy's name? L.A. Marzulli. He's got like all these little catchphrases and stuff, and he seems like a pretty cool guy. I really like him, and I enjoy checking out his stuff. But how does he refer to the Bible? He says the Bible is. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but it's the guidebook of the supernatural. And when you stop and look at it, I mean, look at what all's in the Bible. I mean, there's exorcism, there's demonic possession, there's witches, there's all this stuff. So we really shouldn't be afraid to talk about this stuff because it's right there, Oh
yeah. It's right there. You want to talk about giants? You got it. You want to talk about chimeras, fairyanthropes? It's right there. That includes Bigfoot, Dogman, Goatman. It's all there. I'm just here to let you know it's all there. But yeah, so great just stuff. Awesome. You know what I mean? Great. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about your own Dogman experience. So walk us through a little bit of that and what happened.
Okay. Again, I have a handful of research areas that I have to thank M.K. Davis for. He when he took me under his wing, he took me to a lot of these places, and MK's busy. He's constantly busy working on this and working on that and speaking and all this stuff. And there were a lot of times where he would take me to these places, and it would be like weeks and weeks or months and months before we ever went back rather. And again, when COVID hit, I didn't want to run the risk of getting MK sick. And of course, I didn't want to get sick or get anybody else sick. So when in between MUFON cases, I would start going to these places, and I called MK up one day and I said, look, I don't want you to be mad at me or anything like that, but I said, are you okay if I go to these places, if I kind of take them under my wing, and I don't want you to feel like I'm stealing your places. And he's like, no, not at all. Go. You want to go? Go. That's what I showed you. Why I told you about them. And I just made him a promise. I said, look, if anything wild or crazy happens, you giving me permission, you'll be the first one to hear about it. And for the most part, I have absolutely stuck to that promise. So this one place that we're talking about is outside of Belzona, Mississippi, and it's a place called Sky Lake. And it's a beautiful area. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. The lakes and the scenery and all is just absolutely fantastic. They have a beautiful wildlife management area. They have a boardwalk that will take you a quarter of a mile back into this ancient cypress swamp. I mean, you're talking cypress trees that are as big as my bedroom here. Just hundreds of thousands of years old. And what do you get when you have a swamp, when you have wetland? This is what's been seen out at Sky Lake. Black Panther sightings, Chupacabra sightings, Bigfoot activity, and now we can add Dogman to that area. I've interviewed witnesses that live out there. Told me flat out he saw a Black Panther, a huge solid black cat with the swoop tail. MK has seen 2 Black Panthers out there. When we get off into the killer Chupacabras, Sky Lake is only 7 miles as the crow flies, where all this guy's livestock got slaughtered in one night. So this whole area, MK has discovered a Bigfoot structure. That was one of the very first things that he showed me. And just about every time I go out there, if I'm in or close to the boardwalk area or somewhere near the lake, there's not a trip that's going to go by that I don't get at least 1 to 2 wood knocks. So now I haven't seen any Bigfoot there, but I found possible footprints. Can't confirm that that they were Sasquatch tracks. They were kind of small, but where I found these tracks, if you're walking around in a swamp with cypress knots and wet, nasty, disgusting water in your bare feet, I gotta wonder about you. That's if you hadn't heard of flesh-eating diseases and microbes and stuff like that, you might want to be thinking again. So anyway, this place is just and drones. I've crashed a drone twice there. The second time, it destroyed my drone.
Oh no!
The day that my drone was flown out there, MK pulls up and he goes, "Oh yeah, I crashed my drone out here. My drone took off and went nuts on me." And so I went home and I put a little video up on my YouTube channel, and I had people commenting, yeah, I took a drone out there in the park and it crashed too. I've had numerous drone crashes. So it's like there's something going on, GPS wise, certainly paranormal. One of my last trips out there, I was just finished up exploring a section of this wildlife management area that I'd never been in. I just, dummy me, had never gone and looked over across this field. And when I looked across this field, I'm like, holy crap, this is a whole new area that I can hike and research. And I had been over to this place, and I came over to the park, and the floodwaters had come up out of the swamp. And this was the same. I went back to look at the spot where the the Dogman had run out. And I've got a camcorder in this hand, and I've got a GoPro on my strap. They're both running. I positively know that they are both filming. I get down by the edge of the water, and guess what? Right up above me, there's a cemetery. Cemetery, Bigfoot. You know where I'm going?
Oh, I know.
So I'm standing there. The camcorder and the GoPro both shut down simultaneously, exact same time. Boom.
Mm.
They went off. Not once, not twice, tried to go off 3 times. They just shut off. It was like something just reached up and went bloop, cut them off. And when I went back to review my footage,
Corrupted.
the only clip I had was the third and last clip with the camcorder where I was talking, and I've got a video up about that too. And at this point, I'm weirded out. I mean, you know, I was a little shook up, and you can tell it in my voice because I have never. I mean, I've had electronic things go wrong before.
Right.
One of my research areas where I saw, I got bluff charged, and I saw a Bigfoot. This same place, it was a different day, but I had electronic stuff, weird, wacky stuff happening with gear there. But I've never had 2 cameras, and when I cut them back on, I had tons of battery power left. It wasn't even a drain.
Right.
Something cut them off.
Right.
And it was all here at Skylight. So this was after I saw the dog meat. But yeah, I mean, if you want me to tell you about that, I'll be happy to if you're ready for me to do it.
But before we get there, one question.
Okay.
Have you ever pulled like any strange EMF readings from there, like during all this stuff happening?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have gone down the boardwalk. I've gotten all the way to the end of the boardwalk, and I've taken a tri-field meter. And as I have walked that boardwalk, I've never really had much of anything happen. Now I have had some spooky paranormal things happen on that boardwalk. I mean, I've heard footsteps. I turn around and look, there's nothing there. I've had things get thrown and hit the boardwalk. Now, of course, I understand you've got leaf litter. Things are going to fall out of those trees. The wind's going to blow stuff over. And I've gotten used to that. You can discern that pretty quickly when you spend enough time in a location like that. So I know what leaf litter and limbs hitting the boardwalk sound like. But to answer your question, for most of this 1/4 mile hike, I've never really gotten anything strange or weird with the K2 meter or the tri-field meter. But when I get down to the end of the boardwalk, I can cut my tri-field meter on. And now you got to remember, you're out in the middle of the swamp. And you know, I've had people, you know, hey, you know, there could be things underground that the tri-field meter's picking up, and I do get that, and they're absolutely right. It's just amazing that you're in the middle of a swamp, and when you walk into a certain spot, your tri-field meter goes nuts, and then you back off, and it stops, and you go back, and it goes nuts again, and on and on and on. So now, can I say that there's not some hidden power lines or something up under the boardwalk? I mean, you're like 8 feet off the ground, you know, with this boardwalk. But could it still be picking up cables or something underneath? Yeah, sure. I guess that's possible.
It's possible.
But could it be something, you know, else? Could it be something paranormal or supernatural? Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but it's not really conclusive. I can't. I can attest to hearing what I would call footsteps, ghost steps, or something like that. I've again, things slamming into the boardwalk. I've had that happen. Wood knocks. Me and MK even got hit with ultrasound out there one morning. So there's lots of stuff. This is a very strange place. And again, when you get swamp, you know, wetlands, you've got a real chance of having Bigfoot activity. And I've come to realize when you have Bigfoot activity, a lot of times you're going to have dogman activity. And in this place, it's a smorgasbord. You've got all kinds of crap going on. So, so that's kind of what this place is like and about. Now, it's beautiful. I mean, would I encourage anybody to take their friends and family there? I would, because it's not dark. It's not, there's not nothing. Look, I've got a couple of research areas that, you know, I'm not going to lie to you. I've got two. I've got one spot, again, the spot where I got bluff charged and I saw the Bigfoot sneaking across the trail behind me. I just happened to turn around and this thing comes out of the tree line. I don't know if he was trying to cross over to get to his buddy. Trying to, you know, work its way closer to me. I don't know, but that place has got a lot of bad mojo going. And I'm telling you right now, that place makes me nervous. I don't go unprepared. I'll just say it like that, spiritually or physically. But I can't lie. I don't make it a habit of going there. I've got to let something inside me go, hey, you need to go. And the other place is I've got a spot again where MK introduced me. There are 3 large, huge Indian mounds out in the middle of the country, and they're basically 3 mounds that are in a triangle. The big main mound, which is right across the road from the 2 smaller mounds. I'll say it like this: when I've been across the road at the 2 smaller mounds, I've never had anything negative or bad happen. Now, one time I did find some huge canine prints. They were 5 by 5.5 inches. And if that's a dog, that's a very large dog.
That's a cane corso, right?
I mean, that's big.
Yeah, that's huge.
There are red wolves did get introduced back into the state of Mississippi. But again, the same spot is only 7 miles, or, well, I take that back. I'm saying that wrong. I don't remember the distance from the mounds to Sky Lake, but I don't believe that. I don't think there will be a connection between the Chupacabras. But you know, they're here in Mississippi, but again, I kind of digress. You know, the 2 smaller mounds. Now, I've heard weird stuff while I've been over by these mounds, but never experienced anything bad or negative. I go across to the big mound, the main mound. I have never been on that mound and not had something bad or negative happen. So something over the decades, the hundreds of years, something has happened on that mound, and it's rough. It's bad.
Yeah. Right. You know, I mean, it's just interesting, you know, it's like, you know, we're talking about, like, you know, something manipulating, you know, something within like the EMF spectrum, you know, and it's interesting that, you know, not only are you pointing out there's all these different things that are associated with the same area, the same phenomena, but we also hear that, you know, in every single other story, just about, you know, something that connects to that. And it doesn't matter if we're talking Bigfoot, ghosts, aliens, like that's just one of those strings that, you know, I tell you guys in the audience to look at and pull. Like, there's these strings that just weave all throughout the topic, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. You know, it's like, what do you want to put on to what that is? You know, it's, you know, that's up to you guys in the audience to, you know, connect those dots. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we've kind of laid out where we think that goes, or, you know, or we know that goes, but you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's awesome. You know, it's very interesting. I'm not surprised by any of it at all at this point. But yeah, so,
well, you know, Linda got, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
you know, years ago when Linda Godfrey got off into the dogman thing, and she started looking into the dogman phenomenon. She put together pretty quick a connection between dogman sightings and Indian mounds. Well,
Yep.
one of the very first things that MK taught me was there is a connection between Bigfoot and Indian mounds. And you stop and think about it, that makes perfect sense. Sasquatch, they've been here as long as there's been Native American peoples here, probably before. So the Sasquatch grew up right side by side with the Native Americans, and they watched the Native Americans. They interacted with them, good and bad. So why would your Indian mounds in 2025 not have some type of appeal or an attraction to them? Dogman, it's been stated that from Native American peoples and a lot of guys that go back and do the research and the digging, it's said from the native people that these dogman spirits, or however they refer to it, they're protectors of the mounds. They're protectors of cemeteries. What do you have in the land between the lakes? You've got hundreds of cemeteries in the land in between the lakes. So there's a connection there between Indian mounds, cemeteries, dogman, Bigfoot. Again, like you said a little while ago, these threads, these spider webs, they all connect. They're all interwoven. And if you pull one, Lord knows what you're going to get. I mean, I've pulled them. I've gone into places looking for Bigfoot and had, an encounter with what I think was a demonic entity. And guess where it happened at? These 3 Indian mounds. So I've had a residual haunting experience at these mounds. So, John Keel talked about this. He talked about window areas.
Right.
We would probably refer to them today as hotspots. And, the places that I go to, they're not, just smoking hot, but I usually, I'll say it like this and kind of get back on track here. Every time I go and things kind of, I'm just hiking along and I'm just, just doing my thing and looking at the beautiful scenery. And that's part of the reason why I go too, the exercise and the being outdoors and enjoying nature. But just when I start to think, well, it doesn't look like anything's going to happen today. It looks like it's going to kind of be a bust. Bam, that's when something happens. So,
Right.
I usually don't come home without a little something. And, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
That makes sense. I feel you. I understand totally. So yeah, well, talk to us a little bit, man, about the dogman that you saw out there. And I'm also, while you're doing that, I'm gonna kill my camera feed real quick, guys, because as we were hitting too close to the truth, my light that I just installed decided to go out. So I'm going to go and reconnect that. So Marcus, carry us there, brother.
Okay. All right. Well, what had happened was I had gone to the WMA part of area of Sky Lake, and when I left there, I decided that I would just go to I'd go to the park and maybe hike the boardwalk and see what would happen. So this was November of last year. It was a beautiful sunshiny morning. Not a cloud in the sky. It was just gorgeous. It was jacket weather. It was just the perfect weather to get out and hike and walk around. And I got out of my truck and I kind of walked over toward the tree line so that I could eventually get over to the sidewalk that would lead you to the boardwalk. And as I got up or closer to the tree line, I turned around and I looked back. I think that would be, trying to get my directions here. I guess before I tell a tale, I'm not sure what my direction is right now. I'm a little fuzzy on that part. But anyway,
That's all
I
right. No
looked over
worries.
to my right, and when I looked over to my right, I'm looking at the tree line, you know,
Mhm.
that is where the swamp basically ends.
Mhm.
And right above this tree line, there's this incline where people can walk down. And if you're brave enough and you want to put a kayak in the water, you can go down there and you can put a kayak in the water.
Hmm.
I certainly would not advise it. Judging by what all's out there, I wouldn't do a kayak out there for all the tea in China. But anyway, I look back to my right,
Yeah.
and as you look back to your right, you're going to see a few things. Number one, over here is the tree line / swamp line. And then
Mhm.
you come out and you've got this big long stretch opening. And in the middle of it, there's this big pile of debris where they had bulldozed and scraped and put all their limbs and tree trunks and dirt in this big old
Right.
pile.
Mhm.
And when you go past the debris pile, you kind of go up this little incline. There's this old cemetery there. Beautiful little old cemetery. It's got a lot of World War I, World War II veterans
Mhm.
buried there, and just a beautiful little cemetery. And this place is just kept immaculate. I mean, it is well tended to. The ground, you can eat off the ground. So
Mhm.
being able to see anything, um, you got the best world possible. So anyway, I look over to my right, and as I look over to the right, I catch movement up in the tree line. And as I turn to get a better look at whatever it is I'm seeing,
Mhm.
this thing comes running on all fours out of the tree line, out of the swamp, and it's I knew it wasn't a bear because of the way it was running. You know,
Yeah.
bears have got this, you know, this run that is just instantly recognizable,
Right.
and my goodness, you know what a bear looks like.
Mhm.
And I realized, okay, that no, that's not a bear. So I start looking at it, I'm like, the crap is this? So as this thing is moving towards that debris, I see the large pointed ears. I see the
Mm.
snout, this long snout, pointed ears.
Mhm.
Um, and the crazy thing about it, when people ask me, well, I can tell you that the hair, the fur was kind of short. I'd say maybe 3 inches long. It wasn't shaggy.
Mhm.
Um, it was solid. It was jet black. I mean,
Mhm.
it was black as night. I didn't see a tail. Um,
Right.
but the thing that stands out was the legs. The legs were canine.
Mhm.
They looked like dog legs, the back legs.
Right. Right.
I didn't. I don't know why, but I guess it was just my head, my mind. I focused on the legs and the back end. Um, and because I didn't see a tail, the first thing that went through my head was hyena. Now I'm not saying it looked like a hyena. It didn't look like a hyena. There are
Mhm.
hyena looking dogman reports out there. That's not what
Right.
this looked like. This looked like a jet black, huge dog, a huge canine on all fours. And I would estimate I'm 5'7". As best I
Mhm.
can tell, this thing was probably maybe 100 yards, maybe not even that.
Mhm.
I would estimate that this thing probably, the back end of it probably come up to my chest. And like I say, I'm 5'7". This thing was huge. I mean,
Mm.
it was monstrous.
Right.
And
Now,
it goes in behind. Okay, go ahead.
mhm. Well, when you say hyena, like, does that mean like
Mm-hmm.
back is sloping, like with higher at the shoulder as it's being quadrupedal? Is that what we're saying, or just?
Well, that's what you get from a lot of hyena type dogman sightings.
Okay.
At first off, when I didn't see the tail, I thought the butt end was kind of sloped down, but
Uh-huh.
as I thought back to it, and as I was looking at it,
Right.
I realized it was not sloped down, kind of like that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was more kind of rounded back, but
Okay.
like I say, what really stuck out was the back legs and the
Mm-hmm.
head. I mean, that was just unmistakable. That really
Right.
got me. But it went when it went in behind the debris. I had a couple of little saplings from the park kind of right in
Mm-hmm.
front of me. So
Right.
when it went in behind the debris pile, I lost it. But here's the weird thing. When it went in behind the debris pile, like it was going up toward the cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
what distracted me from seeing where it went, and I never saw it go into the cemetery. I'm assuming that it did. But
Mm-hmm.
when it went in behind the debris pile and was heading up like it was going to go toward the cemetery, a deer, a doe that evidently was up in the cemetery, it comes running out in front of the debris pile, and it was hauling it.
Mm-hmm.
It headed up into the swamp,
Mm-hmm.
close to where the kayak ramp area is, and
Mm-hmm.
it was whatever come out of the swamp, which again I'm saying was a dog man.
Mm-hmm.
It never got on two legs. It stayed on all fours the whole time I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
This deer didn't want no part of it. So I have often wondered, was it trying to move in and get the deer? It, like I say, it wasn't like a dead run, but it wasn't just kind of, walking either. It was it was really fluid. It was really graceful. And,
Right.
and
Right.
that's why I say it wasn't a bear, because, there's not really nothing fluid or graceful about a bear
Mm-hmm.
trotting or running. This was running like a canine, but it was just real graceful. And again, this deer, evidently it saw him. uh Pamela's talking about the cat
I've
coming in.
noticed it knows how to operate a door,
But
which is pretty interesting.
he's pretty swift, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
anyway, this thing, this deer did not want no part of whatever this was. There
Yeah.
wasn't going to be no hanging out around the water cooler. Hey, how's it going? The deer was like, I'm out of here. So, and pretty much that was it. And the crazy thing was, once I saw this, I just went and got on the boardwalk. I was just, and I'm thinking, back after the fact, I'm like, what the heck was wrong with you? What were you thinking? You just saw something that was more than likely a dog man, and now you're just going to take a hike down the trail.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, sometimes you
but
just get a little
you
wild hair up your butt, and you're just like, you know what? Let's step back and never mind that for a minute,
honestly,
right?
I don't think. I'll be frank with you, and I've admitted this to people before. It took me several weeks to
Mm-hmm.
really, really, you know, um, I'll name drop somebody here if you don't mind, but
I don't care.
I finally decided to reach out to Vic Cundiff,
Mm-hmm.
and I got Vic on the phone, and I just flat out told him what I just told you,
Right.
and I said, it's taken me 2 or 3 months to really acknowledge and admit to myself what I saw. I don't think I wanted to admit what I saw,
Right.
and why that was, I don't know. I have no explanation for that, but maybe I just needed the time to process it and just think back and slowly let that the memories clear and the everything just come into focus on what I saw. And he was probably the first person that I really admitted, yeah, that was a dog man. And that was kind of it. And nothing else really weird or odd happened. While I was there, I went on home and just made a note of what happened and started thinking about it and working through it, I guess.
Right. No, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's one of those things, I don't really know how to explain it either, but like, whenever you encounter, or at least in my experience rather, like, whenever you encounter anything that kind of like starts to touch on that whole uncanny valley type situation, like you see it, you understand it, but yet your mind can't fully wrap around it. It's like, shoot, I'm just gonna need a second to kind of process this. You know what I mean? When I saw a dog man, like, I was not really freaked out by it. I was just more like upset and mad about the situation. I was like, what is happening right now? Like, because I'm sitting here seeing this thing sitting down, right next to a fence that's 5.5 feet tall, and it's coming up to here. Yeah, and it's a freaking wolf sitting there, basically, humongous, with a way too big of a head for its proportionately even, large body, and with a hump on its neck. Like, I understand the features, but my mind isn't really processing the situation, like what's going on, and it can, yeah, I mean, to need a second and process it, yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, because the first thing that the mind does, the mind tries to put what we have encountered and what we have seen, we try to put it in a box.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't care how hard you fight it. And there's no doubt in my mind that's what I was doing. I mean, I was trying to put this canine thing in a box. Now, when the two Sasquatch that I saw, they were two different WMAs.
Mm-hmm.
There was no doubt in my mind what I saw. I mean, there's no question. I not for a second did I go, was that really a Bigfoot that I saw? That never came into question. Right. Either of those two encounters, never. Mm-hmm. But this was different. I tried to put this in a box. I think I was almost, wanting it to be something else. Like maybe I was wanting it to be a bear. And I know it wasn't a bear. And I know it wasn't the neighbor's dog.
Right.
I mean, this thing was too humongous. I mean, it had ears like Batman's cowl. I mean, right. The ears were that tall. The mouth was closed. I didn't see teeth or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But again, those back legs, they weren't the legs of a bear. They were right. the legs of a canine. The head mm-hmm. was the head of a canine. And, right. and like I say, it was jet black. So now I know what I saw. Mm-hmm. So, but that was just weird that I tried to find something else for it to be. It's bizarre. And I think a lot of people do that. I think that a lot of witnesses do the exact same thing. So I'm with them on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's just a protection mechanism. Like you've got, if you can fit it into a box, it has less power, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what's going on in that situation. Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Super interesting, man. Very interesting. I find the description too of the long snout to be very interesting for me as well, because mine did as well. And like one of those things for me, like is trying to put things into a box, and it's like you take the elements that the witness describes and you compare it to what like I've seen one, so like when I hear the stories, I try to find the commonalities. So it's like confirmation bias or whatever, but it's like, okay, long snout, check. That's what mine had too. And other people are like, well, mine had short snouts. Like, okay, well, it doesn't make it less real, but it's
Right.
that detail that affirms it. What I've seen myself to me. So I like to
Sure.
hear those details. I'm glad you were able to make that connection. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's lots of different descriptions to these dogman creatures, and same thing with Sasquatch and all like that. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
you have different sizes, different heights, different facial features.
Hmm.
It runs the gamut, especially with Bigfoot. Um,
Hmm.
Dogman, I mean, you seem to have, I don't know, not nearly as many, maybe what, 4 or 5 different, you know, I guess types as
Variant.
people
Yeah.
refer to them. So it's a little more, I guess, streamlined might be the way to use it when it comes to Dogman. But I mean, it just depends on which one you bump into. Sadly,
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, nobody has like the exact answer, and even if you did, you'd be limiting the amount of like ways of entry, right? Like, I mean, we can have something that is, coming from the past, chimera type wise. We can have something that, like with my situation, I feel is, more related to lycanthrope wise, where it's somebody that is dealing with the occult and a spiritual entity gives them the power to deal with that. I mean, you could also lump that in with skinwalker. Are those going to look the same? Maybe, maybe not. And then that doesn't even account like what the government might be playing around with and has been reported for years and years. So I mean, all
that's true.
things, all the things have the ability to be here with us and do the same things, but they might look a little different. Just depends on where you at. Who knows? So that's interesting. That's
Well,
super.
it's funny you mentioned the word skinwalker a little while ago. Um,
Hmm.
just before, I think it was right before I joined the NADP.
Hmm.
Um, I spent again what time I could with my Unexplained Mississippi Facebook, page and group, and
Hmm.
I was contacted by a guy through the Facebook group, and he wanted me to call him, and I called him and talked to him, and he proceeded to tell me of just like 2 weeks before we talked. This was like two and a half, 3 months ago. He
Hmm.
had bumped into a guy down in South Mississippi who encountered or claimed to encounter a skinwalker. And I've never heard of a skinwalker sighting or encounter here in Mississippi. That was the
Hmm.
first. But this guy spoke with another person who was in I'm not sure. I know it was like a park. There was fishing there, recreational fishing and stuff like that going on. And he bumped into this guy who just, he's like, hey, I'll show you where this really cool fishing spot is.
Hmm.
And I'll take you back there and show you how to get there. And they're just, driving along and just having a conversation about the kids and they didn't know each other, but they're just talking about the weather. And all of a sudden this guy, oh, by the way, this happened to me out here.
Hmm.
And he told him what happened. It was basically a skinwalker encounter. And then
Hmm.
he just stopped and he goes back to talking about the weather and the fishing and the hunting in this place. And this guy was just like gobsmacked, and he reached out and, told me what happened. And I was
Right.
like,
Right.
that's crazy,
Yeah.
because I have not been able to find a whole lot of Native American information on skinwalkers here in Mississippi. I've tried, but it doesn't look like the Choctaw and Chickasaw, which were your main tribes here, had a lot of skinwalker type, lore and legends and stuff. But that's not to say they weren't there. But I haven't been able to find a whole lot about that. But so it's just odd,
Hmm.
that would happen here in Mississippi. But thanks to Skinwalker Ranch, that's kind of soaking into the subconscious of our, I guess you'd say, pop culture, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, and then I mean, it's yeah. I mean, people be like, "Oh, this is interesting. Look into it. Oh, this is what Native American lore says it is." Well, meanwhile, occultic literature has been talking about the exact same thing for literally hundreds of years. You gotta dig a little deeper to find that, but it's been there for just as long. So, hey,
absolutely.
Is it connected? Yup. Different names? Yup. Same thing? Yup. So,
yep.
That just is what it is. But anyways, yeah, that's interesting. Yep. That's very interesting. Now, all right, with the time that we have left, I really want to get into this Chupacabra stuff, man, because what I know is really neat. Do you mind telling us a little bit about it?
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief, but if I leave something out or if I kind of stumble on something, again, if you want to see the deep dive that I did on this, go to Unexplained Mississippi, and the episode's called Killer Chupacabras in Mississippi. What happened was, let's see, and I've got some notes here. I'm trying to look at this real quick. What happened was M.K. Davis was told of a farmer who had his livestock in the course of one night, just virtually wiped this guy's corral out. And this is basically what happened. This guy got hit a year before. A year before, he lost 18 hogs. Now, I'm not sure the time frame that he lost the 18 hogs, but he lost 18 hogs the previous year. A year later, he suffers an even bigger, more monumental hit. MK is clued in on this, and MK initially went at this thing thinking that it was possible Bigfoot activity. He's thinking that these rogue wild Bigfoot decided, hey, we're not gonna play around. We're hungry. We're fixing to get everything there is to get. And they hit this guy. But once he started talking to the witnesses in this little community, which again is only about 7 or 8 miles from Sky Lake, he realized this is not Bigfoot. This is not Bigfoot activity. Because what happened a year later was this guy, in one night, he told MK that this was one night. This guy lost 3 hogs, 9 goats. There were 4 horses in this the little corral next to where the hogs and the goats were. These horses were so freaked out, they jumped the fence and took off. They eventually got the horses back, but they got the crap out of Dodge. So this guy lost 3 hogs, 9 goats, one night. And I'm sorry, but the little, and I feel for these critters. I feel for these whether they're coyotes or whatever. But when you see what is the Chupacabra of Texas and Louisiana and now here in Mississippi, you see this poor, pitiful, mange-eating canine that your heart just breaks. Because I mean, I'm an animal lover, and I don't like seeing anything with mange and stuff like that. And that's what these animals look like. Right. It's very obvious. But when MK went and talked to the farmer and the eyewitness, what he was described to him was not this at all. These things were huge. MK took me back with him when we interviewed the eyewitness. And since the time of the attack, this guy and his wife, they were at home one night. They were getting ready to go to bed. They looked out their French windows in the back of the house, and there's like, you know, utility light from the electric company. And they're standing there, and one of these chupacabras comes out of the bushes. And it's not scared. It has no fear. And this thing steps out, and this guy told me in MK, he said, this thing was something I have never seen before in my life. We talked to him on camera, we talked to him off. And he flat out told us this was not a dog or a coyote with mange. What he described, the with not counting the tail, the male was 6 foot long. This thing was 6 foot long. The tail was, I think he said the tail was probably another 2.5 foot long. And he said the head on it, he said it looked like something freakish. It didn't look natural. It didn't look like he said it had all these canine features, but it didn't look canine. And we asked him, what was the hair like? Because at one point while I'm talking to him, I'm thinking dog.
Right.
But no, this thing completely slick skinned was the way he described it. You know, this grayish elephant looking texture and color to its skin. So while he's and his wife are standing there looking at this thing, there's a dog. You know, they had an outdoor dog, and the dog would come up to this thing. He said that the chupacabra had its head down low to the ground the whole time. And he said the dog would come up to it and nip at it, bark at it. And he said the chupacabra wasn't even scared. He said it would kind of make a little lunge. He said the chupacabra could give a rip less. He said that thing could have grabbed that dog by the throat. He said it would have been over. And he said it was not afraid. But then on top of that, out from the bushes steps another one. And he said this one was exactly the same, but he said it was smaller. He said the impression that I got was that this creature was a female. And when you look at that carnage, you know, it makes you wonder how one creature could do that. Well, I mean, I have to wonder, how did two creatures do all that death? The only thing they did was they ate some of the guts. They drank all the blood. All the meaty parts, they left that. Did not fool with that. And I cannot help but wonder if there's not the way the freakish look of these things. I just cannot help but wonder, are we talking about something, a being, an entity that is not fully canine, not a mangy dog, not a mangy, you know, coyote. It just, I have just really come to the conclusion that we're dealing with something from somewhere else. And I think now even MK kind of views it that, because this was not your typical size wise, the freakish way that the head, he said it was evil. He said this thing had an evil look to it. And I have yet to see I've seen some weird looking chupacabras that got hit, run over, you know, caught on film. But what this guy described, that sounds like something outside the norm there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, now I've seen a blue dog once in my life. You know, that's the Texas chupacabra thing, blue dog, or that's what they call it now. But you know, and the one that I saw, it was larger than a normal coyote, but then again, like the coyotes in that area are larger anyways, because I don't think we necessarily have red wolves that were introduced, but we had the Mexican black wolf introduced, and that is a subspecies of red wolf. And they've
Okay.
begun to hybridize, and the coyotes here are quite large. So I know, like, if one of those got mange, it would match size-wise to the one that I saw, you know, and it was very dark, and I would say more black-skinned, the one that I saw, and I
Okay.
didn't really feel like it was evil or put off a vibe. You know, it acted a little bit more intelligent than I thought a dog should, but you know, I don't know that I would have put any
Yeah.
stock into that. But you know what you are describing with this, you know, I agree. It goes beyond the scope of what we know about those particular critters. And you know, is that more of a chupacabra? Is that a hellhound? I mean, I don't know, but you know,
Yeah.
it makes me think about, you know, the beast in the field kind of reference in Revelation, you know, and the important thing to
Sure.
understand about that is, like, in the Greek translation of that, it's pharion, you know, it's not, we're not describing
Yes.
animals as in like your dog just all of a sudden gets possessed by a demon, goes and attacks you. No, we're talking about like animal like humans, essentially, you know, animals with human type features. These are chimeras that are being, you know, being given the go ahead of, hey, go out and wreak your havoc, you know, just like these things would
Yeah.
do or were doing to these said animals. But yet when it came to like dude's dog, you know, something that I'm sure he was very attached to, it didn't feel the need to attack that, which is very interesting. You know, granted, the livestock would be his property
What
as well. I'm sorry, what?
well, you know, this is this. I thought about this, and I'm sitting here wondering now about this aspect of it. Both the farmer and this eyewitness, a local sheriff's deputy and a local game warden came out, talked to them, interviewed them, and you know, if you watch this video that I put up, I've got the original, you know, Marcus and MK interview with this guy, along with my deep dive, and this guy said that this sheriff's deputy and this game warden showed him a picture, showed the farmer and this eyewitness a picture. You know, is this what y'all saw? And they're like, absolutely, this is what we saw. Somebody had got it on a trail cam, and they told them that was a chupacabra that killed all your stuff. Now, what I have to wonder and question now, when he first told us this, I was just kind of gobsmacked. I was like, okay, finally, somebody in law enforcement and the game wardens, they're admitting that this happened. They're admitting that this event took place.
Right.
But, you know, I look, you know, there's an old saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. And if somebody is admitting that with authority and power like those guys have got, you know, count yourself lucky, because a lot of, you know, officers and things like that, they're going to go the opposite way. They're going to tell you, no, that's not what you saw. That didn't happen. You know, this was blah, 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 blah. Right. But, you know, that being said, I have to wonder now, did they know more and they're playing it off that was a chupacabra, and maybe they knew that this was something else that's like a chupacabra, but something that's a lot more dangerous, a lot more freakish, a lot more bloodthirsty, and a lot more dangerous to the community. And, you know, they're going to blow it off as, you know, chupacabra. Because if somebody tells you that, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to get out your laptop or your tablet and you're going to Google Chupacabra, Mississippi. What's going to pop up? That little mangy, poor, pitiful looking dog or coyote that, okay, well, that's what killed my stuff. Hey, let's go to the mall. Nothing to see here. Move along.
That's right.
So,
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Right. These are not the droids you're looking for. Let's just move along. And, I'm just wondering, was there some type of psychology going on there to throw these people into a state of calm? Because, I mean, if something comes out and kills your neighbor's livestock that close to you and that many in one night, I mean, I'm sorry, dude, but I'm not going to bed without my firearms all across the bed. There's something here in this neck of the woods. So I don't know. I mean, that's speculation on my part, but I just wonder now why again, not to look a gift horse in the mouth, but why were they so open? Why did they come out? Because I said they call this a Chupacabra. Yes, they call this a Chupacabra. Now, I haven't heard anything more from that area. The witnesses, they haven't reached out to MK. I mean, of course, that's MK's case, and I was just blessed that he allowed me to come along with him and help him with it. And when I did my deep dive and all like that, MK was just tickled. I mean, he really liked the video that I did, and he let me know how much he liked it. Because basically he was like, well, it's given me some things to think about. So, if you can get your fellow man to maybe look at something in a different light when it comes to this phenomenon, hey, that's a win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so let's backtrack a little bit. And the parts of the animals that were consumed, do you remember what organs it was exactly?
Yes, it was the blood. They supposedly drank all of the blood, and they ripped into and pulled out the guts, and they ate most of the guts. It's kind of conflicting. At one point, the farmer was talking. He said that the heads had been removed, and I don't have a lot of clarification on the heads being removed, but the meat, like the legs and the butt and the places where it'd be meaty and tender, things like that, they didn't touch that. That wasn't so much as a nick. I mean, they drank blood and they went for the guts, the intestines. That was all they touched. They just left them laying there dead. So
that's very interesting.
And of course, when you start looking at things that are really deep off into the supernatural and the paranormal, blood it comes into play a lot, and usually when blood is involved, it's not nothing good. It's not nothing good going on. You can understand something, getting in the barn and killing and eating the chickens, or killing a hog and then chewing on, the meaty portions. That did not happen here. It was the guts and the blood. That's the only thing they touched.
Yep. And actually, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to pull that thread as, blood is always one of those little connecting threads that goes through all of this.
Yep.
There's power in the blood, that's one of those things. And
I mean, and you look at I mean, if you go back, and we kind of touched on this, when you go back to the ancient biblical times, the Bible talks about the Nephilim. They were bloodthirsty. They were cannibals. They drank blood. You come right on through your vampire legend, your werewolf legend, so much of your satanic witchcraft, voodoo rituals. A lot of It involves
Modern day
blood.
UFO.
And yes, absolutely. I mean, alien abductions,
Exactly.
blood, tissue. So
Hmm.
um, you really have to scratch your head on that one. And when I throw that at MK and some other people, they were like, "Wow, there's probably a lot more to this case, this killer Chupacabra case, than we really initially thought about."
Oh yeah, it's very possible, extremely possible.
Uh,
Yeah. Wow.
I
That's
mean, we don't know. I mean, we just don't know. I mean, and sadly, that's what we as investigators and researchers and you and the people out there who have an interest in this stuff. Um, you know, none of us really knows. We're just trying to, like you keep referring to, we're trying to take the thread and weave it together and make a shirt or a ball or something out of, so we can figure it out and understand it. But we may never be able to do it, but all we can do is try. You go out,
right.
you investigate, you research, you put it out there, and maybe somebody else will sit there and go, and of course, what we know, so much of what we know now when it comes to cryptids, the paranormal, it's the guys who come before us. It's those giants that led the way. Your Jacques Valets and your John Keels and those guys, right on up through to the guys who we have today. We're all learning from them, and we're standing on the shoulders of those giants, pardon the pun. And we're just trying to put the puzzle together.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do. And in the meantime, we as investigators and researchers, we should have it within our hearts and within our minds, to be there to help people. I mean, do I love what I do? Absolutely. I mean, I get a thrill out of it. I get a charge out of it. It's because I'm passionate about it. Am I trying to get on a reality show and jump like that? No, I could care less about that. Most everybody who I've known or know had anything to do with these reality shows and stuff like that, it usually turns out to be a nightmare. That's one thing to be a part of a documentary. I mean, that's cool. But
that's
my point is, I'm not trying to do that to get famous. I want to know. I want to know as much as I can. I want to experience as much as I can. But if you care about your fellow man, then we should care about our fellow man, and we should be willing to help them through these experiences. And that's why we go out and look and try to encounter. You can say we're crazy. Yeah, it's probably dangerous. I mean, I'm no doubt that it's a little dangerous, if not a lot dangerous. But when you can tell somebody, well, I had the same thing happen to me. Oh my God, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I thought I was nuts. So you had this happen to you? I'm like, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I experienced the same thing. Thank God I'm not crazy. So that should be what we're shooting for.
Exactly. 100%. I can't agree with you more. That's the whole goal. And if we can all come together and share the details, when we start pulling them threads, we'll find out what that thread's connected to. I'm never going to be someone that's helping out of things, but yeah. What was that?
And you should keep an open mind about things. Look, if you're a researcher or an investigator and you have your theory, that's the great thing about living in the United States of America. You're entitled to your view. You're entitled to, your theory is just as good as the next guy. And people will ask me, they'll go, well, what do you think this is? And my stock answer is D, all of the above. Whatever A, B, and C is, D is all of the above. That's my answer. Because again, we just don't know. So I'm not going to sit there and say that Jim, you're wrong because you think that this is that, and she's wrong because she thinks that. I think there's something to all of it. I mean, it's more complex.
Mm-hmm.
Again, John Keel, Jacques Vallée, from those guys right on up to guys that are leading the charge today. It's not one thing. Right. I think the answer is just way more complicated, and right. All we can do is just try to do our best and figure it out.
For sure, unless, and this is my caveat, I've got only one caveat, unless you think it's some kind of evolutionary product that somehow gained the ability to stand bipedally and be man-like with thumbs. If everybody out there in YouTube land wants to think that, I just want to say, sorry, I reject that. But find me some fossil evidence, and I'm here for it. Just saying.
Amen. There you go.
I get it, but no.
We have found documentation of giants. 8 foot, 9 foot giants. They have been found throughout the Americas. Of course, they've all been absconded with by the Smithsonian and other places. So the evidence, when you dig and look into that, there were giants here. And if giants were here, what else was here? I mean, talk to the Native American Indians. They'll tell you flat out. Yeah, we bumped into our ancient peoples. We encountered this race of giant beings, and it did not go well.
Yep.
So if they were there, what else is there?
And lest we think that it was only a thing for the past, even Jesus himself told us a sign of the times and the end is it will be like the days of Noah. What was going on in Noah's age? All this.
Absolutely. And after the flood, I mean, when you look at what was going on in the land of Canaan, I don't know if you or any of the listeners out there remember, he was just a really awesome guy, and he's passed on now. But if anybody remembers J.C. Johnson, he did a lot of research in the Four Corners area. And I listened to an interview with him one time. He was talking about the giants and the Nephilim and all these weird, chimeras and stuff like this. And the interviewer asked him, well, what was it like back then? When we see about these things that were in the land of Canaan that Joshua and Caleb encountered and all. And he goes, and I think it's the perfect way to sum it up. He says, you remember the cantina scene in Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie? And the guy goes, yeah. He said, that's what it was like in the land of Canaan. He said, there were freaks. And he said, it looked like that scene in Star Wars. He said, that's what was running around. And he said, that's why, stuff had to be done away with. So, I mean, and I think we maybe not everything, but I think some of the things that we are encountering and dealing with could be creatures and critters that have managed to survive and come down through time. So they're the descendants of these things. So again, who knows? Pure speculation, but I think it's a theory well worth looking into. Scott Carpenter, he was him and Ron Moorhead, their work really opened me up to the Nephilim thing and stuff like that. And it's something really, really worth looking into. When I first was told about it, I bucked it. I was like, this is an ape. This is Gigantopithecus. You know, this is
Yep.
this is that phenomena. This is that phenomena. They're in their little boxes. And when I started, looking into Ron's books and stuff like that, and then later on looking into Scott's work, these guys were just way ahead of their time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now it's not nearly, you start talking Nephilim and things like that. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be people that want to, smack you upside the head like, Gibbs on CSI or whatever. But the doorway's a lot more open now when you bring that up, because when you really look at it, a lot of it kind of makes a lot of sense.
I'm yet to find any other theory or explanation that really does tie it all together and answer all the questions that you might have. I mean, it's when you really do a deep dive on the subject and look at it, it really does answer everything that you want answered. But
Absolutely. I mean,
land doesn't have to take my word for it.
No. I mean, again, I'm not a preacher, and I'm not a pastor, and I'm not trying to shove that down somebody's throat. I've looked into lots of things, lots of different religions, and the funny thing is when you look into things like the jinn and stuff like that, that parallels right along with a lot of critters and creatures that Christianity talks about. So it's not just the Bible and Christians talking about these weird things, but when you look at the Hindu religion and all these other, again, your Native American beliefs, they're talking about the same critters and things that we're talking about. A flood record, they all have flood records.
Yep.
They all have encounters with giants. That's all of these peoples around the globe from thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
There's got to be something to that. So,
yep. You're hitting the nail on the head, bro. Hit it nail on the head.
Yeah.
But why would these other religions talk about that? Do I?
I'm swinging the hammer. I might not be hitting the nail head, but I'd like to think I'm coming close.
No,
hopefully I am.
It, bro. You're getting it. And it's funny. People are like, oh, why do these other religions even talk about this then? How do we know that your guy's right? Well, guess what? When you go back and you read Genesis chapter 11, you understand what happens at Babel, and then you understand that dominion over all the nations of the world were given to the sons of God, which is a title for a particular type of angels. And then you look up and you see what happened in the record of what they did. You understand. Oh, gotcha. It all makes sense now. But
it all basically kicked off Genesis 3 and then Genesis chapter 6, talking about the Nephilim. And so it just rolls on from there.
Yep. But that's how it goes. Well, awesome. Well, man, I had a great time. I think we did it. What do you think?
I had a ball. Oh, I had a blast. I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and awesome, cool hosts like you just make it all worthwhile. And
appreciate that.
Like I say, I really appreciate being here. I'm honored.
Well, thank you, man. All right. Well, I'm gonna send you back to the green room. I'll be right there in a second. I'm gonna land this bird. All right, brother?
All right. Anytime you want me, you know where I'm at.
Heck yeah. Well, guys, before he goes, make sure y'all all go out and you sub to the Facebooks and the YouTubes that we've been promoting here in the chat and throwing the link up all night long, and give Marcus some love, because he is an awesome dude and certainly worth your time to watch. So, Marcus, I'll see you in just a few minutes. All right, brother?
Thank you.
All right, see you, man. Well, guys, I hope y'all liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we learned something. I hope you guys did what I asked and grasp those little threads and see where they lead. That's what it's all about. I want to plant those seeds, cast them out there. You guys go and look. I hope I've inspired you to do that a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If nothing else, I hope we were entertaining. Good way to spend your Saturday night. So, guys, you guys know the drill. Make sure everybody has hit the like button. Please leave a comment at the end and all that stuff. It helps me out in the algorithm. Go check out the links and all the stuff. Was that called the products and stuff? You know, because the funds to that is what pays for me to buy equipment, which I just ordered a new camera last night. Shh, don't tell my wife. That stuff pays for that and for me to be able to go out to the field and make stuff, because the new documentary that I'll be dropping from with me and Harley is almost done. If everything goes well, I believe it'll be ready for y'all next month. So be looking for it. Be looking for it. But yeah, you guys know the drill. If you guys have any interesting stories, you know, anything you want to talk to me about, I'm very easy to get a hold of. Email me, message me on Facebook Messenger, whatever. I promise I'm super approachable and I'm happy to talk. You know, we'll have you on, or I'll tell the story for you, whatever you want. Because we want to help other people. We want to make sure that other people that have had these experiences know and understand. No, you're not alone. This stuff happens to all kinds of people all the time from everywhere. It's all about community and helping out your fellow man. That's what it's about. So, with that being said, let me find my buttons. Where's my buttons? All right. Love you guys. Tookie, and peace.
How it's supposed to feel.